If you think you know the world around you, you don't, because every now and then something slips through the cracks, something that wasn't meant to be seen. Some stories simply can't be debunked, explained, or ignored because they don't follow the rules of reality. They break them. What's good? What's good in the YouTube hood? It's your girl, Luna Nova, and I'm back with another one for y'all today. Welcome back to the Mystic Muse, where we dive into the creepy, the conspiracy, and the downright strange. Spirit has a funny way of showing us that everything is connected, whether we believe in it or not. So today, we're stepping into the unknown. I'm talking glitches, entities, and testimonies that hint at worlds overlapping, timeline shifting and bending, and energies that don't play by earthly rules. If you're sensitive to paranormal energy, consider this your warning. As we go ahead and get into these unexplained encounters and whatever else is on the other side, go ahead and grab you a drink, grab you a snack, and let's go ahead and get into today's creepy compilation, only if you dare.
I used to do house calls in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains, primarily for people that lived like off the grid. They didn't have telephones, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no GPS. You use a map, you use the compass. And the company that I worked for doesn't exist anymore. I don't work for that company anymore. But all of the stories I have are very interesting. Based on true stories. Of course, I have to change some things because of anonymity. But when people say that there are strange things in the Appalachian Mountains, I didn't believe it until I actually worked in the Appalachian Mountains. Here's one of those events, for example. I was en route to a patient's home, and as I said, I have a lot of patients that are off the grid, or they live in very rural communities. So I'm driving down a road, and I make a hard turn onto like a side street, I suppose you would say. And there's a single car length bridge. This is important. And I go about 5 minutes past that bridge, and it takes me to another small road where there's a house. Okay, so obviously it didn't take me very long off of the main gravel road to get to this person's house. And like I said, I don't have a GPS, so I really have to pay attention to where I'm going, and how long I've been on this road, and like landmarks, so that I can find my way back. It's the middle of the afternoon, and when I arrive on the property, there's a barn straight ahead at the end of like this drive, and then the house is far set to like the left, and there's like a field in front of the house, right? But it looked like I was supposed to park in front of the barn. That's where the gravel thing ended, so I figured I'd park here and I'll walk to the house. I don't see any other houses around or anything, but I hear that there's people around because I hear like kids playing. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of nice. You know, it's a beautiful day outside. I heard someone call out to me. They said, hello. And I, am still getting stuff out of my car. And I say, hello, I'll be there. Just, give me 1 second. I'm getting my things out of the car. And then I turn, and there's like a car that looks like it's been parked there for a while, and I know this because there's like weeds and brush growing up around it. And there's a gentleman that's walking out from behind the car. Looks like he was tinkering on it or something. He was wearing like denim overalls, no shirt underneath. Nothing particularly interesting about this guy. And so I turned around and started heading to the house, and I don't see anyone, so I'm like, well, they must have said hello and then gone back inside. I don't know, maybe they're getting their medications ready, getting their paperwork ready for us to review it when I get in. And I knocked on the door, and the person comes and collects me, and she said, oh, I didn't see that you had arrived, you're a bit early. And I said, oh, am I? Sorry, thought I heard you call out to me. And she said no, and I was like, okay, fluke, whatever. So we're doing the visit, and we're almost done with the visit. It's still early afternoon, and I get to asking this person I always ask, who do you live with? And she had said, oh, I live alone, and I own like 100 and some acres. And I was like, oh, so like nobody else lives on the property with you? And she says no. And I said, well, I like thought I heard kids playing outside, and I saw a man like doing something with that car out there. Like, does he work for you? And she looked at me and she said, it's out there. And I was like, the car? Yeah, it's out there. It's at this moment I realized that I don't think we're talking about the car. And she goes, you have to go. I'm like, I have to go. I'm like, pardon me, but I'm not quite done yet. And she said, it's going to rain, and if it rains and that pass that you came through, that dirt road, gets wet, you won't be able to leave. And I'm like, it's not going to rain. Like, it's a clear sky outside. She says, I'll fix you a sandwich. Things are happening quickly. Like, it's kind of bizarre. We go from having a nice visit and talking to, you need to leave now. And I'm still confused as hell because she's telling me that she lives on a property where no one else is. And I just literally heard people outside and saw a guy on her property. So like, I'm not understanding what's going on. She's consistently saying like, you have to leave. It's going to rain. You're going to get stuck. You won't be able to leave. Okay. So she hands me a bag. She says there's a sandwich in it. It's like a mesh bag that you keep like potatoes or onions in. She just threw like a baggie in there. She said it was a sandwich. So I'm talking to her while she's making the sandwich, and she's telling me that I need to go get back on the road. And I turn, and it's dark outside. And I don't mean storm cloud dark outside. I mean it's dark outside. It's the middle of the afternoon. And she hastily, I'd say hastily, walks me to the door from which I have come, opens the door, says goodbye, practically pushes me out and closes the door. Now I'm standing in the middle of the afternoon. That was a sunny afternoon on this person's porch in the pitch black with a sandwich. I still don't quite understand the sandwich. What do you want me to do? You want me to bargain with Paranormal Patrick out here for my life? Exchange a sandwich for the skin that he wants to take off and wear like a glove? Not gonna lie, I'm tweaking out a little bit. I'm like, what is going on? Everything was fine. So, like I said, I have been in interesting situations before. I have no Wi-Fi. I cannot call anybody. My car is parked, remember, across the field next to the barn, past several cars that are parked on this property that I just saw someone walking by, and I see nobody now. So I do what anybody would do. I pretend that I'm walking out of Target. I am unbothered. I keep a steady pace. I do not stop. I keep my head straight ahead to my car. And I can tell you clear as day, there is somebody walking. There's somebody walking parallel to me. And you can, like, I could feel it. Like, I could feel somebody looking at me. Give me goosebumps. I don't know if you can see the goosebumps, but like I can still, oh yeah, you can. I can still remember like somebody's in this field with me. And how the hell is it this dark outside? I'm not gonna lie, I dropped the sandwich. I'm like, I don't care. I'm done. It gets quiet. From the point that I'm walking from the field to my car, it is quiet. No crickets, no frogs, no nothing. But you know what I can hear? The sound of jeans. The sound that denim makes when someone's walking. At this point, I'm like, don't run. Don't run. Don't run. Just keep walking like you're walking out of Target. Get to your car and leave. I get to my car. I get back on the road. I start driving. And I'm waiting to see this bridge that I came in on. Because remember, I told you I make note of landmarks. I know how long I've driven on this road because I need to get back to the main road, which means I need to remember how I've come. I'm driving on this road in the dark for like 20 minutes. And there is no main road in sight, and this is the only road that enters this property. Like, that, I couldn't have made a wrong turn. I'm driving down the road. Eventually I get to like this, I wouldn't say brick, it's like this stone underpass bridge thing. I drive under it. It's maybe a little tunnel. I drive under it. It's pitch black on the inside. I get to the other side. It's daytime. And I'm sitting in my car like shaking, trying to make sense of this. Like, how is this possible? Like, weather does not explain it. She's like, it's going to rain. There was no rain, okay? That wasn't clouds. That was night, okay? That was night. That was pitch black, middle of the day. I've encountered some strange things on this job, but I can tell you that really felt like being hunted. That was an interesting feeling. And to this day, I still don't understand the sandwich. I don't understand why she was so insistent on making me leave with this sandwich. But it didn't come with me. I dropped it on the way to the car. I was like, absolutely not. This is just too weird. This whole thing is so weird. Now, like I said, I worked this area for quite some time. I kind of knew my way around. I kind of knew what roads were shooting off the main gravel road. I could find my way to different side streets, if you will. And this was the first time I had seen this patient. It was the first time I had been off this road with the bridge. And I actually went back that way to drive past it to see another patient again. And I could not, for the life of me, find this road. Like, it's like it wasn't there. There was like rock formation, like a part of the mountain that you would drive, you would turn around, and then it would give way to this little road that I got on, and I passed over this bridge and made it to this woman's property. And I never saw that road again. I know you probably think I'm absolutely crazy, but I never saw that road again. The Appalachian Mountains are not for the weak, y'all. I mean, I can't explain it. I know it's kind of an odd story. It's kind of anticlimactic. Nothing happened. But, like, I can't explain it. If you live in the Appalachian Mountains, have you ever heard of something like this happening before? Like, I know it sounds silly, but what do you mean the road's not there? I used to do house calls in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. Many of my patients did not have running water or electricity. Many of them lived off the grid. I did not have cell phone service, and I did not have GPS in a lot of the places where I went. So I would have to navigate with a map and the compass on my car. The company I worked for no longer exists, but how we would get in contact with these people is by sending them a mailer with a time slot, and they would respond by sending the mailer back in the mail. I experienced a lot of interesting things. I did change the details of the stories for confidentiality, but one of the experiences is as follows. The area where I was working did not have a whole lot of apartment complexes, but they did have like clusters of like condos near each other, and there'd be like 4 or 5 people living in a community, and then there'd just be like nothing around. So it was almost like little neighborhoods and little clusters of the Appalachian Mountains. And for this particular visit, I was seeing a patient in this area that I have never been in before, but there were like a whole little community of condos, which was actually very nice. It was a pretty nice area. The mountains were absolutely beautiful. I get to the patient's house, condo, I knock on the door, they come to let me in, and I notice immediately there's like flies flying out of the home. Like, I mean 10, maybe 15 flies when they open the door, the screen door, there's flies flying out. And of course, like, my job is to remain professional. I want the patient to feel comfortable. I don't want to make them think that I'm judging them, because I'm not. So I make no facial expression. I'm like, thank you so much for having me. I'm so-and-so, where would you like me to be? They lead me into the main room, and there's no furniture. It's just like comforters kind of thrown on the floor. There's garbage on the floor. There's old newspapers on the floor. The floor is a little bit damp. And the patient motions for me to sit down. And again, I am here to meet them wherever they are. If they need me to sit on the floor and do the visit, that's where I'm going to be, and that's fine. So I have a seat on the floor. It is in fact damp, and I started asking the patient questions, and seemed like a pretty normal person, except they responded to everything in like what's the word for it? Multiples? Like, I'd say, what medications are you taking? And they would say, we take. And I'd say, who do you live with? We live alone. Okay, I meet a lot of quirky people. Wasn't particularly strange to me at first. They did get a little bit aggravated when I had said at the beginning, you know, what do you mean we? Like, does someone else live here with you? And they said, we live here. And I was like, okay, thank you for clarifying. I apologize. Now, the fly situation. As I had mentioned, a bunch of flies came out of the home when the screen door was opened, and there were flies flying all around the room. And I don't mean a couple of flies. I mean there were flies everywhere. You moved your hand like you could touch the flies, and they were flying around my face and my head. Now, mind you, I usually have my hair and makeup done. I have some scented things on me. It's not like I'm surprised that these flies are flying around my head, but I am surprised about the fact that the flies are flying towards my eyes. Like, I mean, the flies are trying to get into my eyeballs. And that was a little alarming to me, because I have a laptop in one hand, right? And then I'm trying to keep the flies off of my face with another. I'm trying to remain professional. I'm trying to not be bothered. And then a fly nails me in the eye, okay? And of course, instinct, I close my eye on it. So the fly is stuck up in my eye, under my eyelid, and it hurts. So I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. I hear the buzzing. I've got a tissue in my pocket. I take it out. I'm like trying to pull my eye open. Had to go pick up my mini-me. So I've got a fly in my eye. I'm trying to get it out with the tissue. I have no mirror. I'm sitting on the floor, basically on this wet floor, surrounded by garbage. I don't want the patient to feel like I'm judging them or I'm making them uncomfortable. So I remove the fly to the best of my ability. I complete the visit. I go to leave and I cancel my last visit of the day because I'm like, this is disgusting. I feel like I have flies in my hair. I've got a fly stuck in my eyeball. It hurts like heck. I go home, right? I make an appointment for the next morning to go see my eye doctor, which is in town. So I wake up the next morning, I'm getting ready to go to the eye doctor, and I'm walking down to my basement door that goes out into our pasture, and there's just flies covering the screen. And I'm like, what the hell is this? So I open the door and let him out, and I'm like, great, like there must be garbage or something. I'm looking around, there's no garbage bag left anywhere. I don't live in a filthy house. My house is pretty clean, right? But like, fluke, I live in the country. I get to the eye doctor. The eye doctor says, yeah, you definitely scratched up your eye pretty good. You've got a little ulcer in there. Pulls a wing in like one of the fly's legs out from under my eyelid. Oh, it hurt. But like, I've got fly remains stuck in my eyeballs. Like, I am just like, I cannot believe this. My eye hurts so bad. He gives me antibiotic drops, gives me steroid drops. And then I have the day off, right? I took the day off. So I'm like, you know what? You know what sounds good? Let's go to Taco Bell, get a Baja Blast and some tacos. You know, you can't go wrong with that. And I'm in the Taco Bell drive-thru. And I order my Baja Blast. And because I'm not driving, I'm just sitting in the drive-thru. You know, my windows are open. It's a warm day. No air circulation. So I'm like, let me just go ahead, turn on my AC. Hit the AC, and guess what? Flies. Flies. 20, 30, maybe 40 flies into my car. It was then I realized, no, that's not a coincidence. What the hell is going on? I get home, I open the door, flies. What the hell? You've got to be kidding me. And then I'm sitting there thinking about the visit and how this person specifically said, we live here. We take these medicines. We need this. We have pain. And I'm like, oh, what did I bring home with me? That realization was very uncomfortable, okay? Now, if you know me, before I made this video, before you started watching me, you'd know that I worked at a convent at one point in my life, and I would periodically work PRN at this convent, and I was very close with several of the priests and the nuns at the time. So I decided to seek advice from one of the priests because over the last day or so, there were just flies everywhere. My house was overwhelmed with flies. I had flies in my car. I could not explain it, and I even sprayed. And the priest had basically said, you need to tell it to leave. You know, you have power over these things, the word of God, you need to tell it to leave. I'm like, you want me to tell it to leave? You come over and tell it to leave. Like, put on your priest outfit, come on over. I don't want to tell it to leave. Like, this is stressful to me, right? I don't want nothing to do with this. Like, when you mess with the paranormal and you talk about the paranormal messes with you. I'm trying to ignore it. You guys have watched my other videos. Ignoring it, that's what I do. It's too late. I think something followed me home. So I'm home, and I'm home alone. And I walked in, and I said, as for me and my home, we serve the Lord, and you need to leave. I think this is effective after I tell it to go away, till I'm laying in bed that night. I'm sitting up there alone, my husband isn't in bed yet, and I see something laying on the ceiling, like a darker area at the corner of my bedroom. And it looks like a man, and it has one leg, and it's dragging itself across my ceiling, dragging its torso. And it turns its head around, and I can see its black hair fall over its face. And I'm sitting there absolutely paralyzed. Like, what in God's name is this? It dragged itself across the ceiling, dragged its torso across my ceiling with its 1.5 leg, dragged itself around the corner, looked at me the whole time, dragged itself into a large closet in the room, and I never saw it again. And I woke up the next morning, all the flies were dead. And I swept them up, and I threw them outside, and I blessed my house. And I thought to myself, was it his leg that was stuck in my eyeball? Where is your other leg? And who is we? Sometimes I think we need to remember that when you acknowledge the paranormal acknowledges us. The best route, in my opinion, is always to ignore it if you can. But then you get to a point where you can't ignore it. And at that point, I guess you pray to whatever God you believe in. I used to do house calls for a company that no longer exists anymore. And I used to do house calls in homes in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. And I mean, no cell service, no GPS, people living off the grid, sometimes don't have electricity, sometimes don't have running water. Like, I am off the beaten path, dirt road, navigating by map, right? And some of the things that I have seen in these homes can't even be explained. I can't even be explained. For example, there was one time I was driving to this house. I actually had to drive through a graveyard, up this dirt road, to make it to this home on the top of a hill. And I knock on the door, and this old lady comes and gets me, and we walk into the house, and immediately, I can tell it's like a hoarding situation, right? Like, there is stuff stacked from the floor up to the ceiling. Like, you can't even see when you're turning around a corner what's going to be there because the opening is so narrow. And immediately I'm like, okay, fire hazard, this is concerning, we're going to have to consult social work. Like, this is a mess. I don't know how she's living here. We finally make our way down the hallway, and at the end of the hallway there's a sitting area, and there's actually no clutter in the sitting area. There's like a table, there's a love seat, there's a recliner, and then there's like 5 dolls, like my size Barbie height-ish, standing in a half circle around a TV, and the TV is on. And then there are 3 small rocking chairs, children-sized rocking chairs, with 3 figures sitting in them. Appear to be like dolls, right? And she takes a seat in the love seat. She tells me to go ahead and take a seat on the recliner. And I start my assessment. Like, I'm asking her, when was the last time you saw a provider? Like, do you go into town to see a doctor? Is this the only time you see anyone during the year? Like, are you on any medications? And she stops me and she's like, hang on. Can you turn the kids around? And I'm like, turn the kids around? Like, what are you talking about? She's like, can you turn them around? And she points to like the dolls. And I was like, no. The vibe was already creepy. I already was like very weirded out by it. And I just say, no, I'm not allowed to touch, any personal property in the home while I'm doing the visit, and just continue to proceed asking my questions, like, to kind of play it off and like hope she just forgets. And she stops me and she goes, you need to turn them around because they like to watch. And I'm like, up until this point, I didn't, like, there was no reason for me to believe this person was not cognitively intact. Like, they didn't seem like, woohoo. So I'm like, again, I politely decline. I go on to do my job. I'm looking at her, I'm asking questions. I turn my head. Tell me why one of the doll-like things, has now moved. And it's now halfway turned towards me. And I know that it has moved because it was the first thing that I noticed when I walked into the room, how peculiar it was that they were all standing in like a half circle formation looking at the television. They were like dolls. So I know it was out of place when I look back at it. And I had asked her, is anybody else home? Who do you live with? She tells me that she lives with her nephew. Nephew is not home. He is at work. And immediately chills. Like, I could feel it at the base of my spine, like moving up. Like, hair on the back of my neck standing up. It did not feel right. And so I pivot because I'm doing her blood pressure now and like asking her about some of her medications. So I'm at a different angle, and I see that these things sitting in the rocking chairs are doll-esque, like doll type-ish, but they look like little old people. They have like old people faces, and they're dressed in baby clothes. And again, she says, turn them around. I said, no, thank you. And she said, they are getting angry. Stop. They are getting angry? What do you mean they are getting angry? By this point, I'm just trying to remain professional. I am trying to remain unshaken. I'm here to do a job. I'm going to provide that job. I'm going to do an excellent job at my job. But on the inside, I'm freaking out. And she says, okay, why don't you have a look around the rest of the house? She's like, I'll show you my other sitting area and whatever, because I always, if someone has like a hoarding situation or whatever, I want to make sure that, we get social work in. I'm concerned about fire hazard and etc. And so she's leading me around the house, and we get to a staircase, and she goes, you can't go up there. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, no, you can't go up there because that's where my nephew lives, and he keeps his things up there. And I'm like, all right. And I start to notice a very, very distinct odor. I'm assuming from somewhere in that general vicinity of the house, like the upstairs area. And I had asked her about it. I'm like, there's an odor. What is up there? She said, oh, I don't go up there. That's my nephew's part of the house. It was at that point where I was like, no. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's bodies. I don't know what's up with these dolls. So obviously I consulted social work. I completed my job. I completed my visit. I did not take my eye off that doll again. And then I went to leave the house. I opened the screen door. I'm saying my goodbyes. I'm thanking her for having me and telling her what I recommend that she do. And she grabs my wrist as I'm walking out the door. Doesn't say anything, just grabs my wrist. And I said, did you need something else? And she's just standing there, holding onto my wrist. And I said, okay, all right, goodbye. And I like pull myself away from her. And she's just staring at me. I left. Luckily, I was just about done working in that area. Never had to go back to that house again. Don't think I would. The way the hair on the back of my neck stood up, unreal. I sent social work into the house. They can sort that out. I will never forget that. I will never forget that house. I will never forget that doll. That doll, I still dream about it sometimes. The way the doll had like turned around to like try to look at me. No, man. No. I've seen some shit doing house calls out in the mountains. I've heard some shit. I've heard some whistling. I've not done some whistling, but I've heard some whistling. And I'll tell you what, if you see it, no, you didn't. If you heard it, no, you didn't. But that day I saw some shit that I didn't want to see.
Y'all want to hear about this time where me and my friends went to Miami and we went to this nightclub and there was a spirit in that nightclub and the spirit actually helped me save my friend from possibly being sexually assaulted in the bathroom? Come on. Okay, so me and my friends, we get to Miami. Fast forward, we find this really, really small club. This was the smallest club I ever been to. We went there for my friend Naya's birthday, and we used, us and the girl we used to be friends with, right? And so when we find this club, we get there. It's in a predominantly Latino and Hispanic area. So we're standing in line, and I get this feeling that somebody is staring at me. And I look over, and there's this man walking, like he's just walking towards us. And while he's walking towards us, it's like he was staring me down. All right. When I say staring me down, I mean, I was like, you cool? I ain't trying to start no beef in Miami. You feel me? So fast forward, the man that was staring me down ends up like pretty much bypassing the line and walks right past the security guard. Just walks right in the club. And so I didn't pay it any mind. We finally get let in. And when we get let in, instantly, there's some men buying us drinks. Get some drinks and whatever. But of course, because I come from the kind of family I come from, I don't trust nobody, and I'm from Detroit, so I really don't trust that. So I go over to the bar, and I'm watching them pour our drinks. So get our drinks, go back to this little sitting area, and we sit down. But my friend, she is torn up. When I say, you would think that she had about 3 or 4 or 5 of them things, she's messed up real bad. And so I'm keeping an eye on her. Mind you, I have to be the sober friend. I'm older than them by 2-3 years. And then I turn around and I was talking to these girls. It was a group of girls from LA that we were kicking it with. And so we're talking to them and ended up turning around and my friend was gone. And I was I started panicking looking for her. Now, the man that was staring me down, that walked that bypassed the security guard and stuff like that, I see him and I can hear his voice, but I don't see his lips moving. It's so loud in there. It's a miracle I could even hear it, but I hear him. And he said, go to the bathroom. I see my friend, this dude, and she looked like she just having a hard time. And he pretty much holding her up, pretty much. Y'all, I got real active because who did you think you was playing with like this? So I rush over there and I grab my friend. And when I grab my friend, the dude, he get real mad. She said she wanted me to show her. If you don't back the fuck, don't play with me. Do not play with me. So now I'm not feeling safe. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm trying to leave. And so I tell my friend there, she torn up too. I go back over to her. The girls from LA had her. They was making sure she was okay. And so I go back over there and tell her okay, I'm ready to go now. And so, you know, my friend, the other friend that we're not friends with no more, she's still trying to dance and she moving about. And so I'm standing right there with her. Like I'm pretty much her security guard right about now. And so I'm standing there with her. She dancing all crazy and whatnot. And so the dude that was trying to take her to the bathroom ended up coming over to me with like another dude. They're you know, pretty big dudes. You know what I'm saying? And so there's this guy, he had this accent, like a Jamaican accent. He's over at the bar, and the spirit like pretty much led me to go and stand next to this man. So I took my friend to go stand next to him. He's not a large guy like these other dudes, okay? He's a, you know, pretty nice sized guy, but he's not big like them. But I go and stand next to them. When I tell you that it took one look for that man to get them two men, and they got on. They got on. And he like, you know, it's almost like he was like, all right, nah. Just gave him this look. But after that, I felt okay. In my spirit, I felt like it was settled. You know what I'm saying? But then after we ended up leaving from there, I made my friend like, come on. The guy, he was like, he said, y'all need some water. So he get us some water. I give it to my friend. She sobers up. My other friend sobers up. So I'm ready now, you know, to get them out of there. And I'm like, okay, cool. We ended up leaving out of the club. Now, I told y'all this is a predominantly Latino and Hispanic community that the club was in. And so my friends, they're from really small, like predominantly white towns. Okay? Yes, they're black, by the way. So they're very naive. So I'm like looking at them. We like wanting to ride the scooters. I see graffiti. The moment I see graffiti, I said, all right, come on. Let's go now. So the spirit is still like staying with me. He not letting up. He's staying with me literally wherever we go. We roll the scooters down. He's right there. You know, he's on it. And so out of nowhere, this Latino man, he pulls up in the car with like maybe 4 other people. It's a woman driving. And he said, hey, what are y'all doing over here? Mind you, I was ready to go anyway, but I got to look out for these two dum-dums. So I'm like, I can't leave my friends. You know what I'm saying? So he said, what are y'all doing over here? And he was just like, it's not safe. It's not safe, mommy. It's not safe. You cannot be over here. So I said, that's all I needed to hear. Let's go. Let's go. I just, you know, after that, the spirit pretty much, I guess he felt confident enough to go. Because once we got in that Uber, that man drove off. Like he had already driven off, but it's almost like he circled around. We got in our Uber and we get back to our hotel. But when I say that spirit was not letting up, he said, oh, nah, not today. It's not going to happen tonight.
When I was a kid, I lived in a town called Novato, and then I lived in a little like neighborhood called Hamilton for a lot of years. And I lived in different parts of Hamilton. That's like very specific. If you know, you know. Like everybody would say it was like, this army base used to be let's call it an Indian. So this isn't my words. This is what these non-ethnic people would call it. They would be like, it was an Indian reservation. They would always say stuff like that. And my mom was always like, I'm not sure if that was true. However, if it is, she was always like, trying to be very respectful to the land, always taking care of her plants, always acknowledging like her garden, always burning sage, and like trying to be as respectful as she could, just because although that's not her ethnicity, she was always like hyper aware of like, like before we moved into any house, she always had to bless it, partially because she was Catholic and then partially because of her other religion and practices. But this is something that the kids would always say. The kids would always say like, oh, natives, they haunt this, they haunt that. And just because I had a friend who was Miwok and I spent a lot of time with her family and learned a lot about her culture, I didn't necessarily share those beliefs of it being scary or haunted or things like that. I did believe in energy, right? And this is something that happened to me at, I think, like my 7th or 10th birthday party. I'm not sure. It was the only time I was able to have a birthday party. I had these girls sleep over at my house. Now, this is important because Me and the girls had fallen asleep around like maybe like 11 o'clock. And I remember I was up. All the other girls were sleeping, but I was awake, just like laying there. And I remember she was laying closest to the stairs, and I was laying closest to the sliding glass door. And so this always freaks me out. There were hella friends in between us. Like, that's how many of us there were. We like spread out throughout like my whole living room. All of a sudden, I started to feel like there was like really strong energy in the room. Like, really strong energy in the room. You know, when like, you see something at the corner of your eye, or you're laying down and you think you see something, like when you're sitting down in class and somebody's staring at you and you meet their eye because you felt them staring at you, but you feel that energy like making you look. Like, that's what the fuck I had seen. I had felt. So I had shot up out of the blankets, like sitting up. And my best friend did at the same time. So we got up, but we are across from each other, too far away from each other. We can't hold each other. We both see a man standing in my living room. And he was a tall brown man. He was a beautiful, tall brown man. And I'm having so much, I'm having chills just like thinking about this. And I remember her and I just looking, and I was like, I'm unsubscribing from this. I'm scared as fuck. So I laid down and I put the covers over my head. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And when I had opened my like covers again, she was just sitting up and looking in the back door. Mind you, the sliding glass door, you know, this is like a very safe area. There was no curtains. There was no... People could see, we could see in, we could see out. That man is standing there with two people. I told her, lay down. And we both put the covers over our heads. When we looked again, they were gone. Years later, literal years later, a decade later, I meet my Indigenous boyfriend. And around like our 2-year anniversary, I go up to his reservation and I meet the man who I saw in my living room. And me and my boyfriend would always talk about like, oh, we have so many coincidences. Like, his mom's name is my name. My mom's name is his grandmother's name. His little sister and I have like damn near the same birthday. There are genuinely too many coincidences. But his grandfather was the man who I saw in my living room. And I have always felt like that boy, like, I don't know what the fuck. I have always felt like that boy. Did something to find me. Because there's no way how we even met. There's no way we were even supposed to cross paths. But the fact that we did, and then we have so many coincidences. Anyways, I thought that was a coincidence that I had to share.
Remember, what you call a story is someone else's lived experience. With a lot of these energies, as posters have shared, the energy doesn't disappear when the video is over. It lingers. Let today's compilation and every compilation that I share with you guys here on the channel be a reminder of a few things. The world is much bigger, stranger, and layered than we think. If anything in these stories or with a real life experience pulls at your intuition, trust it. Spirit is always going to guide you and give you the knowledge before maybe you physically know it. So if you guys want more creepy compilation breakdowns, creepy podcast episodes, as well as more dives into the mystical, make sure that you go ahead and subscribe here to the channel and join the channel as a member, because I do have a lot of members only videos with a lot of perks for spirituality, tools, tips, and tricks. And if you have an encounter of your own that you want to share for the podcast, make sure that you check out the description of this video to figure out how to submit your story. Because over here with the Mystic Muse, we're just getting started. We've barely tiptoed into the rabbit hole, and we've got a long way to go. So remember, the moment that you stop believing in the unknown is the moment it will try to prove itself to you and then leave you with further questions. So if you want to fuck around and find out, make sure you stay tuned for more. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here so I can edit this one for you guys and push out another one. I've got a really interesting podcast episode that I'm dying to record. So with that being said, make sure that you drink your water, mind your business, and stay prayed up and protected. And as always, Luna loves you. I'll be back with another one for you guys if the spirits allow it. Give it right back,
give it right back.